let's sort of look a bit further then in terms of.
Let's keep pumping through it, because there's a few things attached to that, right? So as I said, if you could work out how to get into the market before the boom, then that would be awesome, right? And that's kind of the thing. Like, the secret really is to understand where and when to enter different markets. And it's no good just saying where, like, I don't know, Sydney's a good market, but the other key part of that is when. And so if we jump onto the next slide, Bushy. So often anyone who's heard me talk before, I talk a lot about the Holy Trinity of property, right? And when we talk about the Holy Trinity of property, we're talking about properties that are in high growth areas, that are cash flow positive and with value add potential, right? But what we actually want to talk about today is what is the Holy Trinity of location selection, right? And really, there are obviously a lot of different aspects to. There's a lot of science and stuff that goes into it, but it cooks down to some very simple characteristics: jobs, lifestyle, and affordability. Right? That particularly right now in today's housing market, they are the three things that are driving growth. Now, interesting look at Bondi Beach. Now, I live here, right? And I can tell you that there are no major new infrastructure projects. There is no new initiatives that are driving more jobs. It's got lifestyle, right? But it's not got the affordability. It's just jumped by 35%, right? And there's no fundamental change in the location. So what that says to me is that the boom isn't sustainable. Like specifically, the sharpness of the current boom isn't sustainable. Yep, the market is still going to go up over time, but that says to me it's more of an anomaly because you're not underpinned by fundamentals.
Yep. Good read.
So when we were talking about getting the where and the when on how to get into different markets, and Bushy, you touched on it a moment ago about the cycles, right? And so, as you said, if you can be in a market for 15 years at least, you're likely to pick up 2 cycles. Now, markets do move in cycles. The timing does differ, right? But anyone who thinks Sydney prices just only go up is sorely mistaken, right? Because they also go down and sideways and do all these other kind of things as well. So every single market in Australia goes through this cycle pattern. For those of you who are just listening and not watching this, we've got a graph on the screen which shows the average growth rate as a linear median, a straight line basically, but it also shows the cyclical nature of property prices relative to the average growth rate.
Just to verbally describe that, it looks like an S curve. So if you're listening to this, imagine an S curve where the bottom of that S is fairly flat for between 5 to 8 years on average. It varies by location. There's no set rule on this, but between 5 and 8 years. And then we see this sharp upward spike, which normally goes between sort of 3 to 5 years on average. And then it plateaus again and it goes through the flat desert stage, and then you'll see this spike in growth.
Exactly. The way that I explain it is that a lot of people talk about the property clock, and I know you do as well. But the thing about when people think about a clock is they think it's a circle, right? They think it goes up and down and round and round. It's actually more like a staircase, right? As you say, it goes a little flat, and then it goes up, and then it goes across, and then it goes up, and then it goes across. And look, the across often does have a little bit of a down dip as well, right? But the point is, you want to work out how to get in at the foot of the stair. Like how do you get in right before it starts to go up? So the interesting thing about that, just jump to the next slide as well, is that rents typically work in an antithetical phasing to property prices, because what tends to happen is that, as we talked about, jobs are one of the drivers, lifestyle, affordability. People will move to a location because they're attracted by jobs and opportunity and prosperity. They'll rent first because they haven't lived there before. They don't know where they want to live and what the good location is. Rents go up, rental demand increases. Then as rent increases start to go up too high, people start thinking, hang on a second, is it worth continuing to rent? Should I buy? And then they start buying houses. That pushes up property prices, etc. And so it's a virtuous cycle that feeds into itself. And so it ends up being like a bit of a snake that swims past itself over and over again. And so if you can get the timing right, which is on the next slide there, if you can get the timing right, you can actually target getting into the right markets at the right place at the right time to capture both a maximum rent cycle and also a pre-boom property cycle. And this is the secret, right? Because anyone who thinks that you can't time markets, I sort of say to them, well, just it doesn't matter. Just go buy anywhere then. Just doesn't matter. Just buy anything. Just buy anything and just whatever, move on. But if you're actually interested in trying to work out, okay, when and where and how can I make sure I'm not buying it in the wrong part in the cycle, there is a process to it. And we call this finding the Goldilocks zone.